this meeting. Unfortunately, the original person who was going to be convener for this working group couldn't do it, and I was asked if I would take her place. So, yes, I've said that, and here I am, and hopefully I can do a reasonably good job at doing it. There are a couple of other things as well. Councillor Andrew Stevens, who is the cabinet member with responsibility for this in his portfolio, unfortunately cannot make it this afternoon. As a result of that, the questions that have been put in, and we have 23 of them, I've gone through, and if there's questions that need a political answer, we will not. I will indicate that it's a political answer is required, and I will not ask the officers to give an answer to that. They may have a view on the technical side of it, but the actual implementation cannot be answered by the officers. It's got to be done by the cabinet member, as you can well understand. Saying that, I've gone through most of the questions. I've gone through the questions. Some of them, as I say, are quite simple questions for the officers to answer. Well, I think they're simple questions for the officers to answer. Let's actually see if the officers can come up with simple answers, which is, I know they're laughing, but it is, we'll see. But hopefully we can get somewhere and get some answers this afternoon and some decisive answers about the concerns of road safety that we have. Okay, let's start. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Councillor Sarah Keaton and Cabinet Member Andrew Stevens.
Okay. Item 2 is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. I am aware that Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Yes, Chair. I organise I bring together members of the council, fellow councillors, along with I'm looking at Alan Ferris, somebody for the AONB, the police, and so on. When for the Gower Commons Action Group. I'm not a member of the action group. I'm one of the councillors. It's myself. It was Councillor Richard Lewis. It's Councillor, and I'm speaking to her earlier from Pennant,
Linda James.
Yeah, Linda James. Now it's Andrew in Penclouth, and it was, of course, Mark, and so on. So and Bridget Rowland. So we are the councillors who cover the Commons, and they've been involved in the meetings as I have. But I just want to sort of raise that.
Okay, thank you, Lyndon. Item 4 on the agenda. I'm sorry, anybody else got any interest? Any officers? No? Okay, right. The next item on the agenda is public questions. Now, I'm aware that we may have we any? No? Right, okay, we have none. Right, we now come on to the road safety report, and what I'm going to do is ask Stuart Davis, Head of Highways and Transportation, if he could give a very brief outline on this. We got our Matthew Boyer and Alan Ferris on the call as well. Did I see Mark there? One Mark is a. Oh, we are very honoured members. We have the whole team in front of us, so do not be afraid to ask questions. Okay. Then I think, who is it going to take it? Andrew or Mark or Stuart?
What I'll do in true management style, I'll delegate most of this to Alan just to run through. But just to give a kind of
well done, Stuart.
Just to give a brief introduction, obviously, road safety is something very close to all our hearts, really, and the intention of the report is to sort of outline really how, well, I guess the legal obligations which sit on the council, but also the different funding mechanisms which are in place, the sort of how we work in partnership, how we assess and prioritise the kind of road safety improvements, and how we make sure that any funding is used to best effect. So really, it's to sort of detail the kind of how robust the process is for considering, identifying, prioritising, and funding the kind of improvements and the measures which sort of lead to casualty reductions. So I think, Alan, if you're okay, I'll just hand over to sort of, if you could sort of run through, I guess, the key areas of the report, if that's okay.
I think you surmised it very well, Stuart. As Stuart said, the report sets out our statutory obligations in the first instance for looking at road safety, what the council have to do in terms of reviewing collisions.
Excuse me, can I ask, someone has got their mics on and there's a lot of there's about a back feed in it. So if whoever's got their mic on, can they switch it off and just leave Alan speak? Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, reviewing collisions and accidents that have happened and creating a programme of works to address those collisions. The report continues to describe the funding mechanisms. Principally, we have the road safety grant, which we bid for to Welsh Government each year. It didn't run last year because of the 20-mile-an-hour national rollout, and it's not going to run this year because of the 20-mile-an-hour national rollout. But that's the principal fund that we use to address any areas in the highway which we find there's a pattern of collisions which is formed, or there are a number of severe collisions. It's where we've introduced schemes such as safety cameras, improvements to junctions, roundabouts, etc. We do that in conjunction with our road safety education programme, which we run Curbcraft. We do motorcyclist training, young driver, old driver training, to try and reduce the number of collisions through education programmes. We then have our Safe Routes and Communities programme. This is not simply about improving road safety. This is looking at changing how we travel, looking to create an environment where people are more likely to walk or cycle. Welsh Government produced legislation in 2013 that active travel, and it's very much geared towards that, but with a specific focus around schools. And I know that we've worked in schemes in many of your wards to help create an environment where we've changed that. We're currently working in Pontarddulais with Councillor Griffiths and Councillor Downing to bring in schemes around the schools there, which will improve the environment to encourage people to travel in that fashion. Next element of funding that we get is through the Active Travel Grant. This specifically is designed to improve connectivity between communities, opening it up for cyclists, but it requires a road safety perspective to try and make sure that that's done safely. And a lot of our efforts in recent years have been developing infrastructure using active travel guidance, which fits into our existing infrastructure and is often very challenging, to make sure that we don't create hazards where we didn't have them before, to change the way people travel. It's often been contentious, as I'm sure many of you are aware. I think we're making great strides within Swansea in developing that network. Next one is as you'll all be aware, Welsh Government, consistent with everything above, are looking to lower the default speed limit on street light roads from existing 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. That's taking a great deal of time and resource to develop just now. We're currently developing mapping, which will create exemptions to that, but it's fair to say that they will be the exception rather than the rule. We're looking to at present keep our key corridors at 30 miles an hour where we can, but the vast majority of lit streets, subject to council agreeing to this, will remain at 20 miles an hour. That will be being presented, the exemptions will be presented to Cabinet towards the end of this month, before our papers then presented to Cabinet, and we'll be sharing that more widely with ward members going forward to bring them into the process, to explain the thinking up until now and seek their views for how it will impact on their communities. Final source of funding from an external source is new development. Whenever we are bringing in new construction into the network, we often have to tailor the existing network to accommodate that. That tends to be paid for by the new development. And then finally, community budget allocation, which you're all aware of, and we work together to try and create more modest schemes within each individual ward to address local concerns that are held within that ward. In doing all of this, the council are responsible for the highway itself, but we're in partnership with other agencies, the police and GoSafe principally. They have a responsibility for ensuring that the users of that highway do so appropriately. The council do not have those powers. We get so many letters from the public expecting the council to be able to deal with all issues on the highway. It's simply not the case. But what we do is we try and work with other agencies to highlight areas of concern, to work with them on those areas of concern. Going forward, and then the report then describes the various techniques for traffic calming. Didn't attempt to describe techniques that are used for road safety, because they very much are tailored to the environment of the highway, and it couldn't be covered within this report. But what we did do
Alan, I think you're frozen a bit there.
So I do apologise, my line seems to have gone down. I tried to describe mechanisms to change drivers' patterns of behaviour. Within that, I know many members have concerns over speed bumps, speed cushions, the impact that that has on the environment. And the report, I think, helps to describe what those concerns are and how we try and accommodate them and deal with them. It's too lengthy, I think, to go into in detail, but it's there to be read. And I would invite any members with any questions. I'm happy to deal with them. Hello?
Have we lost the Guildhall chamber?
Sorry, pardon?
Oh,
Who's that? So I'm going to go through now and ask the member to ask their questions. Joe, you've got your hand up. Is there any particular reason why?
I was going to ask a question, but it's okay.
No, you can. Actually, you are the first on the list, Joe. Right, go ahead. I think that's a factual question anyway.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to ask Alan, where the implementation of countdown crossings sits within the overall strategy for the city and county. We've been, and I know this is ward specific, but it is a strategy across the whole of Swansea. So on the busiest road in Swansea, which just happens to be in St Thomas, we've been asking for countdown crossings for a number of years. And
Joe, we can't hear you. You've either gone on mute or you froze.
oh, sorry. Have I froze? Am I back?
You're okay now, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, was there a starting point and is there an end point for countdown crossings right the way across Swansea? Because I do believe that it's one of the biggest positives to the area in road safety, because people tend not to rush crossings, they tend not to amble, they just tend to be mindful they've got a specific time to get across the crossing. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Matthew, do you want to?
Yeah, that seems like one for me, to be honest. I'm aware of the junction in question. Joe, you're talking about the Fabian Way SA1 Gateway Junction, the big one on Fabian Way. There isn't a programme to roll out countdown crossings. It's as and when something comes up for refurbishment, it gets done, or as money becomes available. A little bit of background. It's until about 15 years ago, far side crossings on junctions and pelican crossings were our standard crossing type. Then the Department for Transport changed the wording slightly of their traffic signs, regulations and general directions, which essentially made, and the wording change was that a pedestrian display had to show either a red man or a green man. And what that meant is, all of a sudden, pelican crossings became illegal and traditional far sides of junctions became illegal, forcing us down the route to use near side crossings, which is something until then we generally resisted in Swansea, because we're aware that people like to see what's going on. Following pressure from various councils, the Department for Transport rolled back and introduced countdown crossings. Now, in the original guidance, countdown crossings were not permitted where the road was crossed in 2 stages. So if you've got an island in the middle, because of the risk of seeing through and seeing and being able to see the display on the far side of the road, it wasn't permitted. Now, that has subsequently been changed again when the new Chapter 6 came out 18 months, 2 years ago, to say that countdown crossings are now not permitted where there is risk of see-through, which essentially means that we now can use them on 2-stage crossings, but we have to design it out. So on the Fabian Way junction, where you've got the staggered crossings, we can now implement countdown, although we will likely have to increase the size of the stagger a little bit, so that when you're standing on one side of the road, then you can't see the countdown head on the far side of the carriageway, because there's no way you can mask something with numbers on it. You can't put any kind of hood on it because you can't see what it's telling you. So yeah, I would wholeheartedly support greater rollout of countdown. It is now our standard crossing type where we do new work, and yeah, I completely agree with you, Joe, that should finance become available, then I would happily put them on the Fabian Way Gateway Junction.
I think the easy answer to that, Joe, is as and when they get broken, there'll be something else will be replace them. That's about right, isn't it?
Unless I can find some other source of money, if via 106 funding or anything else to alter the environment.
Right. Thank you, Joe. Can I move on to the next question? This is Councillor Susan Jones. Do you want me to read out, or will you read out, sir?
I will read out, but can I just ask, is it Matthew, the last gentleman that spoke?
Yeah.
Can you ensure that the road on Victoria Road in Gowerton is added to that list for crossings? Because we, again, have got a very, very busy road with huge potential for accidents there. So can we be added to your list?
Right. Can we have your question now then, Sue?
Right. Speed bumps. How effective are they? and how was they decided where to be put? And if we're having 20 mile an hour, is there need for these speed bumps? Because they cause so many problems with cars avoiding them, coming into the middle of the road. At night, they look as if the cars are flashing you to get out of junctions. They also, because of the width of the roads that I've recognised, cars are, it's dangerous because cars are parking at the side. They have to go into the centre of the road. You've got people coming towards you on the speed bumps, and it also is very discomforting for people with any disability to go over these blinking speed bumps. So my question is there need for speed bumps with the 20 mile an hour coming?
Right. Which one of you is going to answer that then?
I think this one will probably be for me.
Thank you, Alan.
Speed bumps are an effective way of moderating drivers' behaviour. They do reduce the speed of traffic. Typically, if we put in a round-topped hump, you'll reduce the speed of traffic going over that to around 15 miles an hour. And buses will go even slower than that, crossing those. They would be expected to go over them around 10 miles an hour.
It
Speed
doesn't
cushions.
happen, Alan, I've got to say, that doesn't happen.
So you,
I see buses avoiding them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can we have the
Thanks.
answer
Sorry.
first?
sorry, no,
Sorry.
I do apologise. That was a round-topped hump I was talking about. There are no round-topped humps within Gowerton. We didn't put them in Gowerton because they're on bus routes and they're non-preferred solutions on bus routes because of the impact that it has on public transport and emergency services. What we put in Gowerton were speed cushions. They would typically slow traffic to around 20 miles an hour. They're not designed not to slow buses or vehicles with a wider wheelbase, which are designed to straddle the cushion. Parking in Gowerton has been an issue, and a number of the cushions are not, drivers are having difficulty straddling them because of parked vehicles, and it's an issue which we are looking at. But in themselves, traffic calming does slow traffic. We've carried out many surveys which has shown that the average speed of vehicles through traffic calmed areas is at the desired level in the low 20 miles an hour, which is where we aim for. Going forward, when all the roads become 20 miles an hour, if all the drivers drive at 20 miles an hour, there'd be no need for any speed cushions. However, you know, I'm quite sure that a number of members here, when they find that the public aren't driving at 20 miles an hour, will be raising this as an issue with officers. And it is the only mechanism we really have is vertical deflections to slow traffic.
Okay. Well, thank you, Alan.
What about the disabled people that are having huge problems with these bumps? And I have to say, Alan, the buses in the area, because of the parking, are going over the bumps, and they are exceeding 20 miles an hour in many places. They just go the speed that they normally do.
Can I hold on for a minute? Can we move on to the next question and put all that in the conclusions at the end? Okay. Okay. Lyndon.
Okay, great, thank you. Animals, as we know, unfortunately are being killed throughout the year on the Gower Commons. How are traffic measures being enforced, particularly with the increased number of visitors to the area? And I must say, sadly, the other day, there was one calf that was taken 30 yards on the front of a car, and then the car took another 20 yards to stop. You know, and that was moving at some speed on the common, you know.
Okay, who's doing this one?
I think again that would be myself. We are aware of road safety issues on the common. We extensively reviewed the speed limits in 2018. Took out most of the national speed limit on the key routes through the common. and introduced a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit to try and encourage drivers to drive at a more appropriate speed so that they could take account of the conditions and the potential for animals wandering out, as well as reducing the potential for collisions between people unfamiliar with the area. And I have to say, there seems to be a growing evidence that a number of the problems are created by locals within the area that are very familiar with the roads, driving at excessive speeds. We work with the police and GoSafe, but it's their responsibility to undertake enforcement there. It's not appropriate for us, I think, to introduce any physical measures within the common. I don't think we'd be permitted to do so, but it's really for the police and GoSafe to enforce the limits which we have introduced, and we did so in consultation with the police.
Okay.
All right. Lyndon, your next question is about preventing antisocial camping or parking adjacent to the common. I think that is a question that Andrew should answer, because it's a policy issue. I don't think it's necessarily an issue that the officers can answer, but we will put that in the letter that we send to Andrew, the cabinet member, for an answer for you, Lyndon. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. The next one is Councillor Mike White. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Can you explain to us how effective is the use of speed cameras, and how we ensure that they're working?
Who's going to answer that one then?
Possibly that would be me again.
Is it?
Speed cameras themselves are highly effective at managing driver behaviour. We get very good compliance around speed camera sites. But in terms of their operation, we are not directly responsible for the functioning of the cameras and their back office. That is done by GoSafe. We're responsible for the kit on the road, so the posts and the markings, and endeavour to keep those up to date to allow enforcement to take place. But it's the police and GoSafe who are responsible for the operation of the camera itself and making sure that they work and that they have capacity to undertake enforcement with them.
Chair, can I just go back to the officer if possible? Is there then a system in place for a checking and monitoring the cameras with GoSafe?
We work with GoSafe and on identifying stresses within their system. We're currently looking at introducing a new system in A4067. We've had issues with the pen cloud cameras, and we've changed the way that we operate with GoSafe to make sure that they are involved in the review of tender process to ensure that the cameras that are brought in are acceptable to the police and GoSafe and can slot into their existing systems.
Okay. Right. Actually, the next question you use as well, Mike.
Yes, thank you again, Chair. Yeah, in regards to consultation, Alan, regarding when we're looking at obviously putting pelican crossings in and obviously tactile paving, is a positive dialogue with the disabled groups within the Sydney County Swansea? Because, for example, Oxford Street is a prime example where we have tactile paving in areas, and we've got sort of businesses like coffee shops and that who actually got outside seating and actually obstruct sort of tactile areas. So, but is the input given as well is given by the disabled groups of Swansea when you go to consultation about implementing these measures?
The simple answer is yes. disabled groups are standard consultees on all traffic regulation orders that we bring in, which include Pelican and Puffin crossings, Ducans. The situation you describe seems to be a change in the use of the street scene, and I'm not sure that they would have been consulted on that directly.
Yeah, I think if I can add something on that, certainly any sort of tables, chairs, and including signage and any obstruction as such on the highway has got to be sort of licensed and on the footways. We've got a process of sort of inspection and licensing in terms of in place. So I think if there are any concerns on that, then if you report them through to the highways team, we can certainly look at whether those, whether they're authorised, and if they are causing an obstruction or a safety issue, then they can be dealt with in terms of through the sort of individuals causing the problem. So I think if there's anything there, then Councillor White, then please just let us know.
Okay, Councillor Mike. Okay, the next question is Councillor Mike Day, but unfortunately I can't. Again, this is one. It's about council plans regarding the 20-mile-an-hour, 30-mile-an-hour limit. I think there's a political answer there, Councillor Day, and I think we should put in the letter to Andrew what our answer to that is, because as I said, Monmouth has withdrawn the from Caldecott the speed limit, but that was a trial, so I think we will ask Andrew for an answer for that one. Is that all right?
Yeah, I was just conscious that there is a lot of work that Alan and colleagues are doing on it, and just hope that all this background research. I know it's a Welsh Government initiative and not something we have control over, but there are questions about the effectiveness of this, and so you're happy to ask Andrew for that. If I can move on to the next one, then is about the shared use paths.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that we've had lots of discussions with Robbie and Alan and colleagues about that, and I think those of us who use the shared use paths regularly still get concerned over incidents where there have been collisions between pedestrians and cyclists in particular, or some near misses, and I just really wanted to raise that as being something which is of concern, and I don't know if there are any answers or whether there's any particular work that's been going on to look at that, because whilst, like for example, along the front, the shared use path signage is well in place now, you've still got the white lines, and I noticed a nasty incident the other day where a cyclist was getting very irate at somebody who happened to wander just over the little white line, and despite the fact that the cyclist had plenty of room. I'm not saying it's an issue with cyclists or with pedestrians. I think it's both. But I wondered if there are any studies that are going on to look at the safety concerns around the use of shared use paths.
Alan?
We design all our shared use paths in accordance with the active travel guidance, and we additionally introduced the additional signage over and above with the share for care to remind users of their requirement that it is a shared use facility and they have to do so with consideration to other users. I'm not aware of a plethora of actual collisions that have between pedestrians and cyclists on these facilities, but it is an issue I'm aware of, and it is something we'll be looking at as time goes forward.
Thank you. I'm not sure what the answer is, though, Alan.
Maybe
more education.
Fair play. It's a very good answer, Alan. It said nothing. Fair play.
I think it is a very difficult matter. I mean, you have certainly for the majority of sort of cyclists and for walkers that they would be considerate, but you do, I guess, the same as for driving, you do get an extreme element who don't have the same level of consideration, and it's a very difficult matter to sort of try and deal with. But certainly, I think we're very much tuned into sort of what the best practice are and across the across Wales and the UK. So it's a matter we will keep in sight all the time and introduce any measures that come through as appropriate.
Thank you. I mean, conscious of the fact that there's no reporting mechanism at the moment, as there is with, through the police with road collisions. But, if there was a picture being built up through the ability to report things, it might give us a clearer picture as to what's going on.
I think it's a particular challenge as well in some areas. If there's specific routes that are linking from one point to another, there tends to be possibly slightly less conflict or potential conflict. I think the Prom is an example where there's a lot more leisure users who are maybe not are going at their own pace. There isn't such a need, so there can be more of a point of conflict along there.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Chris, can I go on to the next question as it's mine?
Yes, yeah, carry on.
We've introduced a community speed watch locally. There was a hiccup in the sense that there was a general hold on it across Wales because of doing a new or updated risk assessment on the safety of community speed watch volunteers, and that's been addressed now as indicated in the report by PCSOs, accompanying groups going out. But I just wondered if there's any sort of view on how successful these are. I'm not aware of other schemes other than perhaps one in Pennard. Maybe other members will sort of pop up now and say we've got one in our area, but it's not an easy thing to introduce and to run, and I just wonder whether it's kind of worth the effort, if I can put it like that.
Alan?
I'm not aware of the success of this. I know that there's a number of areas and wards where members have shown an interest in developing community speed watch schemes. My knowledge of it is that they struggle to get numbers of people that are willing to dedicate the time to run it successfully, and it's sputtered and it's not run smoothly in many locations. There are invariably a group of very enthusiastic people that struggle to bring the wider community with them on it. So I don't have any great detail on it, I'm afraid, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. I mean, as you say, attitudes do tend to vary. I mean, one of the volunteers has pulled out because he was disappointed that we couldn't actually prosecute speeders. I think others were unaware of what the restraints or constraints rather are on the community speed watch scheme. But we're going to give it a go and see how it goes. And I just wondered if it's worthwhile, doing some sort of review at some point.
I think some of the volunteers would prefer to have a gun and shoot them. Literally.
You might think so, Chair, but I couldn't possibly comment.
My question is, the next one is virtually the same as David. Dave Jenkins is 11. So, David, do you want to ask your question on 11?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so my question number 11 is in reference to paragraphs 2.4.1. So I believe there is a common problem with parents and guardians parking in streets near the schools, often on yellow lines, and if the yellow lines are there, even the pavements. Has this ever been discussed as a common issue across the country? And if so, where were the best what were the best practices discussed to resolve the problem now and in the future? And if it was discussed, what was the name of the forum that it was discussed in?
I don't know, Stuart or Mark, because this is a high-level question.
Alan may be able to. Alan, I don't know. I'm aware in some areas that in more sort of dense urban areas, some of the larger cities and London, they introduce restrictions in the streets within a vicinity during school period, so it's only for access for residents only. But I'm not aware of schemes in Wales or in other areas. I'm not sure. Alan, have you got any?
we're exploring just now introducing a school street scheme in Pontedullis. We're using it almost as a pilot to prohibit parents from going on to a section of the street. Ultimately, it will require the authority to take on powers for moving traffic offences as opposed to static traffic offences. But it's an area we're looking to explore at present in that. But as within Councillor Hawley's question, he highlights that it has to be done sensitively. At the point where we prohibit parents from getting to that section of street, we need to make sure that it's an environment that's capable of taking vehicles at that point, because parents will inevitably try and drive as close as possible as they can. In terms of the parents parking on yellow lines within the existing TROs, generally, when members highlight any specific concerns, we will try and target that area for a period of time, but we have to do it within the resources we have available to us. Yeah, there's like 100 schools within Swansea, all starting at roughly the same time, and we have a limited resource to be able to attend to all of those schools, but we'll try and do it in a rolling programme. And if members make us aware of concerns, then we'll try and target those concerns.
Okay. Now we have a number of questions from Di Jenkins about parking tickets and the timetable. Do you want to answer those two questions? I think the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions that you got there, David, we will put in the letter. So if you can answer 12 and 13, and then we'll move on to the school buses one. David?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so number 12 is how many parking tickets have been issued in all the Swansea wards for inappropriate parking between the hours of 2:45 p.m. and 3:45 p.m. Monday to Friday?
Apologies, Matthew, I should have asked you.
There were, I can't do it on a ward by ward basis. Tickets aren't issued ward by ward, but there were a total of 4,197 tickets issued last year between 2:45 and 3:45 Monday to Friday. I have a list of the streets that they were issued on, and I'll happily share that following the meeting.
Is that all right, David?
That's great, thank you.
Then the other one then is the timetable.
Yeah, thank you. So are you able to arrange a timetable so that one day a month you can visit an area highlighted by ward councillors between 2:45 and 3:45 to discourage poor parking behaviours by the issuing of fixed penalty notices?
As with members to try and create a programme of that nature to go around the areas of consent at that period of time.
Yeah, I think Alan, you're freezing in and out. So Matthew, can you answer it?
The short answer is yes. We've routinely patrolled these with camera car.
Apologies.
Alan, Matthew will answer the question because you were freezing in and out.
We routinely patrol using the camera car during school times. We are currently in the process of procuring an additional camera car, which will give us greater ability to look at schools during school times. But yeah, we'll quite happily take our lead from ward members where they think they've got issues in developing an enforcement programme.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Officer. Thank you.
Okay. Question 14, Councillor Sue Jones.
It's regarding school buses. I think Gowerton is quite unique. We've got 2 comprehensive schools within our ward, but buses are parking in the bus bay anytime from 12:30 on in a day, minibuses are parking up around the area rather than go back to their depots, I believe. I have reported a number of times. I know it's difficult, but again, for the people that live adjacent to that, it's like living in a bus park.
Stuart?
I wasn't aware of the issues of this. I suspect it'll be relatively difficult to kind of take any action unless they were causing a nuisance as such. I'm not aware of this. Have we had any reports of it through Ellen previously?
Alan, Matthew? Matthew will answer.
Can I jump in? We have had, not in Gowerton, but we have had reports elsewhere, and we dealt with it via the passenger transport unit who'd issue out the bus contracts in the first place. So we'll take it up with them, and I'll come back to you, Councillor.
I have made representations to school transport regarding this,
Yeah.
not highways, in fairness.
Yeah, well, they're contracted to us, so ultimately they're under our control. But I'll take it up with them, and I will come back to you.
Yeah, if they're causing a nuisance in a community, then there's certainly something that from the contracts themselves we should be able to.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, the next question you've already answered about Curbcraft anyway. Councillor Mike Day. Question 16.
I'm wondering whether this is one for the cabinet member as well. But it's basically that
It's a difficult one, Mike, because it's not asking about the policy. It's actually asking what is immediately considered.
I was going to go on to say that I think Alan touched upon it during his presentation on the report, in that what I was looking at is the fact that resources are limited and what you feel is deliverable or achievable immediately, considering financial constraints, because we might come up with a wonderful wish list of things that we would like to see happening, both in our own areas and elsewhere within the city and county. But it's just a question of what's achievable. And I guess, without putting words into your mouth, it'll be a question of coming back and saying, well, it's what we might be able to afford or prioritise as part of our community budgets, as well as what might be available. Because I understood, Alan, from what you said, that the number of grants are being reduced or held back at the moment.
The only grant I'm aware of that's actually being held back is the road safety grant, which was held back last year and is being held back this year, with resources going towards the 20-mile-an-hour rollout. Where you've got areas of concern, officers are happy to work with members to develop solutions to the problems that are there, and we can then look at what the funding mechanisms might be that are appropriate to deal with those. It's just a case of what the problem is, the best solution where it might be found.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, then, Councillor Mike White, question 17. I think that's a reasonable question to ask them, officers.
Yeah. What do you, as officers, feel are the main issues? Do they match up with what we consider as members to be the current issues?
Right then, Stuart.
Whoa,
One's for you.
Okay. I guess this is a balance, really. There's sometimes you get issues which are of concern in the community, where in some cases it might be a perception of speed or a perception of risk. What we tend to do, we certainly respond to those, but we may, through different surveys and whether it's looking at various statistics or whether it's looking at actual traffic speeds and things, find that they don't align with an actual sort of danger. It's more of a perceived sort of risk and perceived speed issues. So there isn't always alignment, but certainly what we endeavour to do is respond to it, to investigate what the concerns are. Obviously, from the funding, we hopefully what's been detailed in the report and given everyone a good feel of is how we approach things. So there's a kind of a robust and clear prioritisation approach to what we do and how we deal with genuine road safety issues. And I guess that sort of means that we don't end up putting measures in ad hoc and unnecessarily in areas where there are no actual issues. So There isn't always alignment, but certainly in some areas where issues are raised, then it is found to be, a problem. And I guess a number of the different schemes we've introduced have been in response to initially from community concerns and from concerns raised by ward members.
So effectively, you're more saying that it is more or less a parity than what we've obviously been flagging up today.
I don't know if Stuart, do you want to answer that?
Sorry, I lost the beginning of that one, Councillor.
Yes, sorry, sir. Would you say then it's a parity of the issues that we've obviously flagged up today that you were identifying as well,
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does in some situations. As as I say, things which are raised do transpire to be genuine problems when they're raised by yourselves, and we investigate them, and there are concerns, and that enables us to put either measures for in the wider community or in specific areas. So there is, I think there is parity in some of it, but it doesn't always align.
Okay, I think the question 19 and 20, which is a really fair question about the surface of the roads and the speed cushions. I wonder if you could answer that. David, can you, yeah, if you'd please. I think if 19 and 20 added together, I think it's a good question.
Yeah, okay, so I'll add them both together then, okay? So question 19 and 20. So as speed cushions half the life surfaces, can all the speed cushion enforcements on the ward please be placed on hold until that percentage is dramatically reduced? That's the first question. And it follows on then, as the speed cushions half the life of the road longevity, do you have a forward plan to have extra funding, i.e. double the investment caused by the cushions, deterioration of the road surfaces in wards with cushions? For example, if the road surfacing takes place every 5 years, then would it not be prudent to suggest that the wards with cushions, their road surfaces could be done every 2.5 years? Thank you.
Shall I start? Or do you want to start, Alan? I can always add on something from a maintenance perspective.
Yeah, sure. The introduction of speed cushions is carried out to either reduce the speed of traffic on the road or as a tool to try and change behaviours and how people travel. We introduced those measures in full consultation with ward members to address those particular issues, fully recognising the impact that has on the fabric of the highway. And it's a balance that has to be struck between improving road safety and changing the way people travel, whilst recognising that there is a maintenance cost associated with that. But we do so in full consultation with members.
Yeah, well, I think what we also
wait till David finishes, then come back.
Yeah, what we also do is try and ensure that we're, got a good alignment in terms of putting surfacing the immediate approaches to some of the sort of assessing the condition of the existing carriageway and putting in sort of resurfacing on the immediate approaches to the traffic calming. I guess the main reason for slightly higher levels of deterioration is that it concentrates the traffic to a certain channel rather than it being spread over a slightly wider area. But that's certainly measures that we're trying to make sure that we consider that and put the appropriate surfacing and the approaches in when the schemes are introduced. So that's something we're working towards.
Yeah, David, by all means, come back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fully aware of why they're put in, but it doesn't answer the question of can you stop them until, if it's a no, it's a no. But 50 by reducing roads by 50%, okay, in this day and age, right? surely the technology needs to be addressed first before they're put down. So that's the question. If it's a no, it's a no. And the other one then is, it didn't really answer it, because if it's half in the life, do we get double the budget? If it's a no, it's a no. But if you could answer that.
Sorry, what I'm trying to say is that we introduced these schemes. There's a balance to be struck between improving the environment in terms of reducing the speed of traffic, making it safer for people, but we recognise that there is an impact on the maintenance. We'll try and minimise that by careful design of the traffic calming, but we recognise that there is an impact on the surface and fabric of the road, but that has to be measured against trying to reduce the number and severity of collisions and changing the patterns with which people travel to and from a destination. That's the ambition of the scheme when we set out. When we're developing these schemes, we do so in conjunction with members, and it's at that point that members can influence the design and whether we take those particular actions. In terms of the maintenance, maintenance is assessed on the condition of the carriageway. If the carriageway is deteriorated more heavily in an area that has traffic calming, then it will probably be accelerated within the maintenance programme.
Okay, I don't think you're going to get a better answer on that, David. Okay, thank you very all. Okay. The other questions that David's asked are going to be put in the letter to the cabinet member. I think it's only fair now to ask anyone who hasn't put in a written question if any of the members on the panel have any questions they would like to ask. I'll throw it open to the rest of the members. Anybody? No? Okay. I have a few questions I would like to ask. I think the first one is that I don't think we've covered it at all, is how do we encourage safe walking to schools? I think of all the safety issues we talk about, I think most parents and most grandparents or anything were more concerned about their children walking to school than anything else. And one of the complaints many councillors get is actually about not safe route. When we had safe routes in the community or safe routes to school, they were always more more attractive to the public than the active travel routes that are currently being pushed out. So can I ask, what are we doing about encouraging safe walking to schools?
We have continued to work on Safe Routes and Communities programmes, Councillor. As I mentioned earlier, we're currently working on Pontarddulais. We listen to the concerns of members who wish to become involved in the Safe Routes and Communities programme, and we continue to look at solutions around schools which will make it more attractive for parents and children to walk to and from school, and choosing a different mechanism to travel.
I think the other thing, is the continued sort of management of the curbcraft training and the cycle training. I think as well there's a benefit of having the active travel routes, the wider active travel routes, because it gives an area where certainly in some sections where it's off-road, where children, for example, can develop some of their skills in terms of cycling in what's deemed to be a kind of a safer off-road environment. So I think there are a number of measures in place at the moment.
What measures are there to encourage cycle use, safe cycle use in areas? What are they, and where are they?
We still carry out education programs within schools to teach kids to cycle safely on the roads. I don't have the numbers to hand, but we carry out a full program of training for children through the schools.
I wonder if you could let members of this panel know what how often that takes place and where it takes place, because I think there are issues that I know members are aware of, that they don't feel that there's enough of that being done, and maybe some encouragement to the cabinet member about that. Councillor Mike White, do you have another question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, just following on from Chair's question about the issue of around the schools and that. I can remember we used to have a road safety team. Is this still in existence? We used to have Jeff Green and Madeline Proctor. That's quite a few years ago, but they used to have a rolling programme where they would visit every school and obviously teach children about road safety, and especially introducing curb craft and that. And also, are we able to find out through our education colleagues of how many schools are actually using the curb craft scheme? Will that be possible, Stuart?
Sorry if I may. Yes, Councillor, we still carry out a full programme of curb craft. I do have the numbers for this because this was one of Councillor Hawley's questions. In this current year, we're on course for training 1,200 pupils in curb craft. Now that's down on the peak numbers, which used to be about 1,745, but that was due to staff resignation this year, so we missed a member of staff for 2 quarters. But I would anticipate next year we'll be up to training the same number as peak years. I can get you a list of the schools which have been trained, but we invite all primaries to participate in the curb craft programme.
I suppose just to add to it as well, from a road safety and traffic perspective, yes, very much. Alan is the new Jeff. Jeff obviously retired. Crikey, I think it's 3 years ago now, is it? I think something 2 to 3 years ago. So Alan heads up the traffic and road safety team. And there are, curb craft coordinators and road safety staff members and traffic engineers within Alan's team. So,
can I just ask a question? We mentioned earlier on within the report given by the officers about obviously new development within the city and traffic layout. Could I just ask, are developers supportive and engaging with the authority officers in regards to when they asked for contributions of 106?
I think Matthew's going to answer that question for you.
In the main, yes. In the main, obviously 106 is designed to make on planning committee. Councillor, 106 is designed to make development acceptable in planning terms. However, the LDP has attached certain requirements to developments brought forward during this plan period with regard to things like active travel and road safety and improvements which are set out within the plan, and then we'd look to leverage funds via 106 to implement those.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mike. Councillor Kevin Griss.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair. With regards to the training programmes, would it not be possible to design a programme that could be shown on Hub, which a lot of people use, and possibly take it home as well to show to their parents so they can learn as well?
That's a really good idea to teach the parents, Kevin, I must admit. I don't know which one of you is going to answer that one. Okay.
It's certainly, I mean, something we can take back. Alan is very much engaged in an all Wales road safety group and things on there. So I see no harm in putting forward the suggestion to see if we could see if I get some Welsh Government funding or something to develop something that could be put on, for example, a hub for home sort of learning as well. I don't think it would replace the face-to-face in terms of the curbcraft and cycle training that's offered, but it could certainly be an additional measure that we can look at suggesting anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members? Hang on. Oh, Councillor Joe Hill.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just on the child routes, just wondering if anyone encourages walking buses. I know they work in other countries. I don't know if they work here, but I suppose it would be a question around who would volunteer. If it was to be marshalled, it would have to be, I suppose, a paid position. But it's just something that everybody recognises does work elsewhere. And just on the wider aspect that Councillor White raised, I suppose the disappointing thing from a planning perspective, or from a member perspective, when new plans come for some sort of development, is that the first thing they put on the plans is a road and a car. Maybe not even the proposed development, but the strategy always seems to be focused on the road and the car, not the pavement, not walking, not cycling, but it's always, you can have a look, go and have a look at any plans now that are being put forward to planning, and you will see it's roads and cars. Thanks, sir. Cheers.
Fair enough. Who's going to answer that? Stuart?
I think what we can say is that we've been working with planning and developers to work up a sort of streets design guide, which is more focused on the importance of the place rather than it being the traditional layouts as such, so that it is much more encouraging for I guess seeing a sense of priority for pedestrians and cyclists rather than being the traditional kind of segregated routes, which was the norm in I guess street and highway development. So I know Matt and the team have worked hard on pulling something together with developers. So hopefully there will be a change of I guess that change of philosophy which will come through, which gives more priority to pedestrians and cyclists.
Can I just come back in, Stuart?
Yes,
because if you look at our new development on SA1, there's nothing there for cyclists, and this is a development, some of it only 2 years old, and again I've spoken to a couple of other council officers, and they're really quite disappointed as well that it's just about the development, and it's about traffic, and it's not about how we make it a better space for residents. And we wouldn't be having the discussion now about opening Langdon Road up if we'd maybe thought in another direction, if we had thought about the people that would be moving in and maybe not the overuse of the vehicle that was coming with them. It's not a criticism, don't get me wrong, because you know this is going to take generations to change, and I get it, but we need to start somewhere. But thanks anyway, Stuart.
No, thank you for the comments. I don't know about the specific development, the details on the specific development, but I guess I can give some words of reassurance that we're working with. There's quite a kind of innovative scheme coming forward in terms of Gwynvine, which we're working with some with the sort of housing associations to develop, and that's very much got that real shift in emphasis to creating a more pleasant kind of urban environment, which is less, I guess, car centric. So I would say that we're hopefully as schemes come forward that they will start to look and feel different. But I do agree that these things will take a significant period to embed in and see the changes rolling out. But hopefully we're all collectively working towards that.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Councillor Mike Day.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. The conversation has moved on, but I just wanted to comment on the idea of walking buses. We did try it with Scrutiny Primary, and whilst it worked for a little while, the resource implications were quite considerable. The volunteers of the required from members of staff and or parents in order to do it, and there were issues in connection with making sure you had sufficient high-vis jackets for the children, and there was an appropriate place where they could gather. And what would you do if somebody who you were expecting to join the walking bus didn't turn up, and they needed to progress through to the school? So again, it will come back down, I think, to the I suppose steadfastness of the volunteers and the preparedness of them to give up some time. But I think it's a great idea, and it shouldn't be dismissed, but it is problematic.
Okay. Are there any other members who wish to ask questions on the report? No? Okay. Right. That being the case, then our next step is to have a discussion and conclusion about the working group today. The officers are more than welcome to stay if they wish, or they can go. It's entirely up to them. I suspect that some of them might want to depart, but I see a hand up. Is that Kevin?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just make a comment before the officers go and just say a big thank you for the work that they're doing within Pontylice. They're not normally criticised by people for the hard work they do, but the work is progressing greatly.
No, Kevin, don't try scraping around them now. Look at them. Look at them. Their heads are growing as they go. Matthew,
they do an even better job in Scrutiny. They do an even better job in Scrutiny.
Councillor Griffiths, that's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. We'll make sure that the teams involved are made aware of the comments.
Can I then, if that's the case, can I, on behalf of the working group, thank you very much for coming, for your candid answers and putting up with some of the comments as well. And thank you very much. We will now have a discussion and come to a conclusion about the letters that we will send to the cabinet member. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Members, I've written down a few things that, and if you agree, I think these should be in the letter. We're not happy that the road safety grant is from the Welsh Government hasn't come forward, that it's been put forward to the 20-mile-an-hour work. We feel that road safety is better. Actually, I think road safety is far better coming down to the basis of the local members, because we know our wards and we know what is required in those wards. I think it's very important that we also know what the council can do to enforce road safety. Because some of the things you've heard that we can't do things like on the common, we can't arrest people, or we can't do anything of that nature. So I think it's important that we know that. I think we need to have a programme of work for encouraging safe walking to schools. I think we need to actually say to the department, right, we want to see a programme by which we encourage all primary schools and secondary schools to encourage walking to schools. And I think finally, that's my view anyway, there may be others, we need to have some sort of safety booklet signage for shared paths. I know that quite a number of people passed comment about, you have, various cyclists and people walking on these paths, and they should know there should be some sort of information available that actually says that there's a shared path and what have you. Okay, I've got David and I got Kevin and Sue. So David, can I take David first, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, on that last point there with the shared paths, I think that not all, but some cyclists think it's just a cycle track, Yeah. And certainly in the Gowerton ward, there's been a lot of speeding on that track. And what I did was I got waiting for the results to come through, but basically exactly the same as a speeding road. They checked out the speed of cyclists, because you might say you think they're speeding, but it's another thing proving it. So that if that comes back as they are speeding, because I've had a lot of complaints about people that aren't using the track anymore, they're too scared. I've had complaints about abuse from cyclists. Okay, so if it comes back in that they are speeding, then that section of the road is going to be looked at to put in calming measures to slow them down.
Okay.
Can I also add, David, that we've had a nasty accident from a bike coming out of the cycle track onto a road and hit a pedestrian.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin?
Get officers to encourage headmasters or people within the school to stop their own staff parking on corners, especially in the comm school with us. It seems to be more teachers, because these cars are parked there from 9 o'clock till 3:30 or whatever time they leave. So I was wondering if the officers can encourage the headmasters to tell the teachers not to park there, or they will be fined. And I don't think anybody wants to see anybody fined. So I just wondered if that could be put on there to ask them.
Okay, make a note of it now. Yeah, I'm aware of employees.
Including education and head teachers, and look at how their staff are travelling to and from their both employment.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Okay, Sue?
Just, can they improve consultation with ward members on road safety? Because you're having speed bumps. I didn't feel that was consultation. We were implementing them.
Yeah, so.
So much so that the new councillor in Penclough has said he wanted speed bumps in the village, but he's seen what's happened to Gowerton and nobody wants them.
Okay.
That's happening in Ireland as well.
Yeah, I can believe that. Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I think that
Yes,
the point's
Mike
been
Day.
made. Really, yeah, thanks. The point's been made actually about engagement with councillors over any schemes in the area. I think it's two ways. One is where the council is introducing schemes into wards, and then it's also, maybe having discussions with members over issues or problems in their ward, yeah, just underline that particular point. Thank you.
Okay. Lyndon?
Great, thanks. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, on the issue with the animals getting killed on the common, obviously Alan mentioned about the police and Go Safe, but the cabinet member is obviously on the Go Safe partnership, so can put pressure on Go Safe to be being more proactive in that area. I think it is something that needs to be done. It is an issue, as Alan said, that we are finding that it's sometimes local people, not always holiday makers, but nevertheless it is an issue, and I think is something that the cabinet member can take up when he's on as a member of the Go Safe partnership.
Okay, so it is in that, do you say all the commons in Swansea that where Bridget Rowlands is, so Councillor Bridget Rowland is up in Craigavon Park plus the Gower Commons?
Yes, we put meetings together, as I mentioned at the start, with the Gower Commons Action Group, and it involved all the councillors involved with Commons. So yes, it was Bridget, it was Linda, James, and so on, and it was Mark, Thomas, now it's Andrew Williams in Penclough. But I think, yeah, all the Commons really, because Go Safe will say they need a safe place to stop. Well, we need to be talking to the commoners, and they can be doing that and saying, because there are a lot of places they can stop, but sometimes don't. And I think it really is important, because I think, like that example I gave where the animal was taking 30 yards on the front of a car, those sort of things can be stopped, because very often you need a presence. And once you've got that presence, it doesn't have to happen often, but people recognize it and they'll think, gosh, I better watch myself, because they could be out there. So I think it is important.
Okay. Councillor Mike White.
Just to enforce coming of the obviously partnership working with highway, road traffic and schools with education. And I don't know whether you can remember yourself, Chair, but we used to have banners on the railings of the schools.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
But if they are still in existence, I know the Matt maybe will do let us know this. But at least, when you had the banners there, it was an actual deterrent about them parking, on the zigzags right outside the school gate and that.
Yeah, that was going to be tried, but under the rules, under health and safety, it was stopped because didn't think the drivers would realise they are children. That was part of the problem. One of the things that I've seen some time ago was, like mannequin dummies put onto the railings with blood on them or paint to say this is what happens when you speed near schools. So I think that's probably a bit safer than letting the kids lay on the zigzags, but I think that is a little bit safer. But yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, put down improved consultation with ward members on schemes on safety generally all around schools. Is there anything else any members would like to put in? No? If that's the case, can I thank you all very much for attending today? I thank you, the officers and everyone else for the work they're currently doing in health and road safety. We'll put together a response now, and with a bit of luck, by the end of the week, maybe early next week, we'll be able to send out the response for all of you to see. And if you want to add or subtract, but I would suspect you'll want to put something in it as well. So if you could, I look forward to that. Thank you all very much for your attendance. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Right.